The room upstairs. The prairie wind howled through the cracks in the timber walls, rattling the shutters of the old farmhouse. It was late autumn, and the scent of burning wood mixed with the sharp bite of frost in the air. Inside, the Campbell family sat around the dinner table, their meal of salted pork, cornbread, and boiled potatoes spread before them. The fire in the fireplace crackled, casting flickering shadows across the wooden floors. The only sounds were the scraping of forks against tin plates and the occasional murmur of conversation. Then from upstairs came a sound, a low, wavering moan, almost a song, though the words made no sense. The family stiffened. Abigail Campbell, the mother, shot a glance at her husband Thomas. His jaw tightened as he continued eating, acting as if he hadn't heard a thing. Their eldest son, James, kept his eyes on his plate, though his grip on his fork tensed. The younger children, Mary and Sammy, exchanged nervous glances. Only the baby, little Ruth, oblivious in her cradle by the fire, gurgled softly. The sound came again, a whispering voice, a shuffle of movement from the locked room upstairs, then a sharp thud as if someone had struck the walls. Mary, just 9 years old, looked up with wide, frightened eyes. "Mama," she whispered. "Eat," Abigail said sharply, her voice low but firm. She reached for the iron pot and landed more potatoes into her husband's plate. Her hands trembled slightly. Upstairs, the noises grew louder. A desperate, garbled cry, followed by the rattling of the door. The latch held. It always did. The baby stirred, her tiny face scrunching in discomfort. James finally spoke, his voice tight. "I can take a plate up when you're done, Ma." Abigail shook her head. "I'll do it." Thomas exhaled through his nose, slow and heavy, setting his fork down. "Leave it be for now. She'll be quiet soon enough." But she didn't. The cries turned into a wail, a high-pitched, raw wail. Then the fists started pounding against the wood. Thomas shoved back his chair. "God Almighty," he muttered, rising to his feet. He strode towards the stairs, heavy boots echoing against the floorboards. The children froze, watching as their father disappeared up the narrow steps. The house fell silent except for the wailing, then the sound of the latch lifting. Abigail bit her lip. A beat of silence passed by. Then her daughter's voice, trembling, frantic. "No, please. Papa, don't." A slap rang out. The wailing stopped. A soft whimper followed, then the creak of a bed as the figure inside the locked room collapsed onto it. Thomas came back down the stairs, his expression like stone. He sat back down at the table, picked up his fork, and resumed eating. The house went silent again. Abigail swallowed, staring at her own plate, her appetite gone. James, his voice quiet, barely more than a whisper, asked, "Is she getting worse?" Thomas chewed, swallowed, and then wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "She just needs to learn to keep quiet," he said. The conversation ended. Abigail rose after a few minutes and filled a tin plate with food, setting a small cup of water beside it. She moved with careful precision, as if every motion was part of a delicate, practiced ritual. As she climbed the stairs, the family watched her go, but said nothing. The door to the locked room was closed again, but she could hear the soft, ragged breathing inside. She knocked once gently. "Letty," she murmured, "it's Mama." No answer. So she lifted the latch and stepped inside. The room was dim, the single candle on the small wooden table flickering. The air smelled of sweat and stale blankets. In the corner, huddled against the wall, sat a young woman, no older than 20, her face pale, her lips split from where her father's hand had struck her. Her dark hair hung in tangled waves, her dress torn at the sleeve. Her blue eyes, once so bright, were hollow now, rimmed with deep purple shadows. Abigail knelt beside her, setting the plate down carefully. "You have to be quiet, baby," she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. Letty flinched at the touch of her mother. "I tried, Mama," she murmured. Her voice was small and distant. "I tried." Tears burned behind Abigail's eyes, but she forced them back. "I know, sweetie," Abigail said. She took Letty's hand and placed it on the spoon, guiding her fingers around it. "Eat, sweetheart, please." Letty obeyed. Though her movements were sluggish, she took a bite, then another. Abigail sat with her until the candle burned low, until the wind outside swallowed the world in darkness, until her daughter's breathing slowed. Her body curled in on itself like a child retreating from a nightmare. She tucked the blanket around her, kissed her forehead, and stood. Before she closed the door, she whispered, "I love you." Letty said nothing. Abigail shut the door. She slid the latch into place.